Hello, welcome to the Queen's College on this slightly overcast day in the middle of March. My name's Lindsay Turnbull and I am the biology tutor here at Queen's. I'm one of two biology tutors here at Queen's, but I'm also the garden fellow, and that gives me the great job of being able to oversee the gardens and their development. And today we're bringing you this event called the Potting Shed, and we're going to give you a sort of behind the scenes look of what the gardens are like here at Queen's and what goes on and how we make the decisions and what we've got growing here. And there have been a lot of changes in the gardens over the last few years, and so we think it's a great time to give you a tour. Now I'm actually standing in a little corner of the Provost garden. The Provost Lodgings is just over to the back there, and I'm standing by our rather fine new greenhouse. This was put up about 3 years ago when we had to completely redevelop the Provost garden, because we built an extension to our library, a wonderful underground extension, and all we had left of the garden was a hole. And that all had to be filled in and re-landscaped, and as part of that, we've made this special corner for our wonderful new head gardener. He's not that new, I think you've been here 2 or 3 years now, but this is Alistair Malik.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Welcome everybody. Today we're going to give you a little bit of a tour of the garden, give you a little bit of the feel for the place and how we work it here. Maybe show you a few jobs that you could be doing at home in some of your gardens that are kind of appropriate at this time of year. And generally find a few little gems, hopefully, which are dotted around the gardens and which are looking fabulous just now.
And I bet they are looking wonderful, Alistair, under your tender loving care. And I wonder if we could start by you opening that secret door behind you, and we're going to head off into the Provost garden to see how that is getting on after the new library development. I love this massive beech tree that we have here in the Provost garden, and I'm sure for any of our old members or current students, they'll all be immediately familiar with this because it's certainly been here longer than either of us have been here, right, Alistair?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I love this tree, and it's such a fantastic, it's almost like an architectural piece, really. I'm being very careful where I tread. I don't want to tread on any of Alistair's wonderful plants. But obviously a wonderful tree like this, a mature tree, will dominate any garden, even one as big as this. This is a beech, a copper beech. It's really fabulous in spring, but it does cause problems for the gardener, right? Because,
it does.
you know, very dense shade in the summer, and it's sucking up all the water. You know, what you see above ground, it's probably got in roots below ground. But as you can see right now, it looks fantastic, and it's all about taking advantage of that tree. It's a brilliant place to grow spring bulbs, not a great place to have a herbaceous border. And Alistair, maybe over to you to tell us a bit more about how you've made this look so wonderful.
Well, I think we have to just, you have to choose the right plant for the right place, really. You've got to work with the natural environment you've got here, and this will look great until early summer, where it will just start to kind of green over and still look good for the rest of the year, but won't be as kind of have as much colour or as much effervescence as it does now. And it's about picking the right plants. So we've got some native plants like the stinking iris here, the Iris foetidus, and the Hellebore foetidus here. And also we've got the white flowered comfrey, great for insects at the moment, but also we've got all the different spring bulbs. We've got kind of wild hyacinths coming through. We've got little Tazetta daffodils here, and then setting it all off with these lovely dark kind of sultry looking hellebores, which just look fabulous for months.
And what you're saying about insects, a lot of our people, old members, have written in saying what can they do for pollinators, for native animals that they want to support in their gardens. Well, I can see a 7-spot ladybird tucked inside this comfrey. You know, hellebores are actually really good for bees early in the year. I often see the queen bumblebees that emerge in the spring coming to the hellebores. Yep. So we're very much on the page with that, right, in this garden, Alistair, absolutely keen to support nature wherever we can.
Very much so, and having things in flower through as much of the year as possible. We have things in flower for 12 months of the year here, and because you always want to have a nectar source available for any insects out there, not just bees, but also hoverflies, butterflies, moths as well. So it's having as big a variety of plants, some native, some non-native, but yeah, making sure there is somewhere that they can gather pollen whenever they needed it, really.
Okay, so we've moved away from the copper beech, that's over there, and we've got the Provost Lodgings to my right here, and the Provost garden runs all the way down to our magnificent library at the end. And all of this was dug up to accommodate the new underground extension. We just had to protect the tree there, the copper beech, and also this magnificent wisteria. And you can see it's very old, probably 100 years old, and actually it's survived incredibly well. We were very worried about it because digging works were going right up close to it, but actually it has survived really well. So all of these beds had to be renewed, remade, new soil in there, and it's only shallow, but it gets lots of sun, very different from underneath the beech. And Alistair's been filling these beds with all kinds of lovely things, roses among them, and I can see you've been pruning it, Alistair. And I know that lots of our viewers are probably anxious about pruning, right? It's one of the things that gardeners get anxious about, like when should they prune, how should they prune, how not to make a mess of it. How have you done such a nice job of this, Rose?
I was quite nervous about pruning when I first started gardening. It is something that I think a lot of people think that it's going to be harder than it is. It's something that, yeah, just have a go at it, because if you get it wrong, roses in particular, especially shrub roses like this is one called Olivia, are quite forgiving. So you want to kind of make sure that it's opened out. You want to remove any dead, diseased and damaged branches, and you want to form maybe something a bit like this one, a kind of nice kind of goblet shape, so there's some air that can go through it, and you want to make sure everything that you leave is a good strong branch.
Okay, so Alistair, it looks quite brutal. You know, you've cut it down, so it's only about a foot high all around here. How big's it going to be by the middle of July?
Well, this probably is going to get to between 3 and 4 feet at its very maximum, so I've reduced it between a half and down to a half or a third of its final height. So you can be pretty tough with these plants. So you can make sure you just get back to good, healthy branches. And then after you've done that and you've got a nice shape, give it a mulch. Roses particular, big heavy feeders, more kind of healthy organic nutrients you can throw at them.
Horse manure, right?
Horse manure, compost, seaweed feed, you name it, but it's all going to be really good for making you have a nice healthy plant during the summer.
So I think another thing, if you're nervous about pruning, is to not do too much at first, right? You can do a first cut, you can then go back, you can always take a bit more off.
Yeah.
If you take too much off, you can't stick it back on, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
So would you return to this? You know, is there some little bits of tidying up that you might still want to do that you could show our viewers?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, there's definitely a few little ends and a little few things that could make this look a little bit better, I think. Okay, so when you're making a cut, you want to find a strong branch with a nice outward facing bud and cut just above it and aim for a kind of sloping cut. And this will leave a nice clean cut with no stub that will end up rotting off on the plant, and that will heal over very quickly.
So we're down at the far end of the Provost Garden now, the Provost Lodgings over there, and we're up against the facade of the library. And this is really our finest building, one of the finest buildings in Oxford indeed. And we've got various figures in the niches along here. And this is Philippa, and she was keen on plants and gardening, and her mother sent over her some rosemary. We're not quite sure whether it was seeds or whether it was plants, sent them over and extolled the virtues of rosemary. And Philippa is credited with kind of rekindling interest in rosemary in Britain. So we think the Romans brought it first, but then I guess sometime after the Romans, you know, cooking went a bit, I imagine English cooking went a bit to pot, frankly, and they kind of forgot how great rosemary was. And Philippa was part of that renaissance. And when we put this garden back together, Alison Madden, who's the wife of our previous provost, was very keen to reflect some of that history in the garden. And so with Philippa gazing down at this bed, what better thing could we do than to fill it with rosemary? So Alistair, how is our rosemary doing? Is it thriving?
Absolutely. Mostly, but yes, we do have a wonderful rosemary bed here. It's hot, dry corner, and we've got vast amount of different varieties, prostrate ones, upright ones, large leafed, flowering all the way through the year, different varieties, some of them even smelling of ginger. But I did notice quite recently we do have one little predator. Only come to the country in the last 20 years, coming up from southern Europe, but it's slowly spreading and it's affecting rosemary, but also sage, lavender, perovskia, and it's definitely something the RHS want to find out more about. So they are very keen on people reporting it if they do find it in their own gardens.
You're keeping us in such suspense here. So what is this thing?
It's a, yes, it's a little beetle, a beautiful little iridescent beetle with kind of purple stripes on it. both the beetle and the larvae will eat the leaves and the flowers of the plant, causing the tips to blacken generally. So it doesn't look terrible, but big infestations can be quite a problem. We do everything organically here within the college, so we don't use any chemicals on our plants, but we would say the easiest way to kind of get them off the plant is to shake the plant, preferably onto maybe something like a white piece of cloth or a fleece, and then to dispose of the bugs like that. Maybe we can see if we can find one and we can show you what they look like so you can be able to find them in your own garden. Okay, I'm sure somewhere on here we will be able to find, yep. Okay. A lot of the time you find them in pairs like this, and I assume they're mating. I know that they lay their eggs I think all the way through the winter, and both the beetles and the larvae can be quite active for most of the year. Downtime in midsummer between June and August, but for the rest of the time they can be a bit of a problem for us.
Well, it's been really nice to come back and have this little tour around the Provost Garden. I can remember after the hole was filled in and that we just had bare soil, and I had to help put all the initial plants in because Alistair wasn't with us at that point. And it's nice to really see how it develops, and it's amazing how this garden, even just over the space of 3 years, I can really see it evolving and changing. And I think what's important as a gardener as well, if you're in that position where you have to take over a new garden and start again, is you've got to be prepared for some failure. Like, it's not going to work. Everything you plant won't thrive, no matter how hard you try. Right, Alistair?
Absolutely. There's been some failures in this garden, I have to admit, but you have to keep trying, yeah, with the ethos of if you put the right plant in the right place, there's a much more likely chance of it being happy.
And what we also did, I remember, is when you came along, you started being much more sort of hands-on as the gardener in terms of the gardening practice. So you also brought stuff from the Fellows Garden, right? You said, look, this has been self-seeding really well, let's bring some of those seedlings and put them in here. And of course, they exactly were the things that thrive.
Absolutely, absolutely. If something is thriving in your garden, yeah, kind of take that as a sign, take it forward, use it again, plant them around your garden.
Give them to your neighbours.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone in the local vicinity will all have very similar conditions. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of the Fellows Garden, actually, of course, we've got this beautiful old wall here, and then the pathway. On the other side, sticking up a bit higher, is what's called the long wall, and that forms the back of the Fellows Garden, and that's where we're going to go next, right? Yeah. So here we are, we're standing against the long wall. It's a very tall wall, very beautiful. And we're always thinking about what we're going to plant against it and whether things will be the right kind of colour. We've got this beautiful sort of grey-green conifer here, which is a really nice colour against the wall. And here we've got something that I can see is flowering really well, despite the fact that it's only mid-March. It's some sort of legume, Alistair, but what is it?
It is a legume. This is Coronea valentina glauca, and yeah, you can tell by the flowers it's a member of the pea family, obviously. Flowers nearly all winter and then sporadically throughout the year as well, and in the summer you can pick up quite a nice scent as well. In the winter I don't particularly get much of
I can smell it, actually.
Oh, you can today,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
But I think maybe I've just got a bad sense of smell. But it's a wonderful plant. It's really tough because this is a very hot, dry spot. So that's the kind of conditions it likes. Probably can't put up with the coldest parts of the UK, but anywhere in the south I think it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. I can see, actually, just like I'm standing in the flower bed here, that I'm surrounded by, it looks like you've just been putting a whole lot of mulch on all of these beds. What's that about? What's the purpose of that?
Well, mulching is probably the single best thing you can do to improve the soil and the structure of the soil in your garden, really. So this is all compost from the Parks Department, from the cuttings from the Botanic Gardens and the other colleges, and this has been mulched down for a couple of years. So this helps improve the structure of the soil, the water retaining capabilities of the soil. If you've got very heavy soil, it helps make the drainage a lot better. But here we have the opposite problem. This is very dry, quite poor soil, so this is just giving it extra body, and also adding a bunch of kind of bacteria and other small tiny life forms to the soil, which is only kind of improving the general soil health within the whole garden.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that people often don't really realise that soil is very much a living thing.
Absolutely.
And you really want a lot of those. We're always frightened, I think, as gardeners. We're terrified of pests. So we've just seen the rosemary beetle, and there's nothing like a red flag to a bull, right? Yeah. But actually, a lot of the living things in the garden they're part of the whole garden ecosystem, and you don't have to wage war against everything.
No, and the soil is the single most fundamental part of your garden. If you've got happy, healthy soil, growing things is going to be an awful lot easier, really. And whatever soil you've got to start with, you can change it and amend it with composts and mulches, really. That's the single best thing you can do. And it cuts down weeding by 90% in the spring.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you put quite a thick layer on, so I think any sort of tiny little weed seedling is going to struggle to get established through
Well,
that.
exactly, and then the amount of seeds that will land on this and then germinate are very easy to kind of deal with anyways.
So in front of the long wall, we've got this long herbaceous border. And actually this again is quite new. It was only all put in about 2011, and it was designed by a garden designer called Catherine Hetherington, who's quite a well-known designer, and she's got lots of clever tricks, but of course you can learn from them. And one problem with the big herbaceous border is that they can look very boring all through the winter. There's nothing really going on, the plants have all died back. And what she put in were these, what we think of as structural elements, and those are evergreen plants that are there to provide structure. The flowers look nice in front of them, and you've got something to look at in the winter. So we've got little box hedges, we've got a little pittosporum here, this is a very nice purple one called Tom Thumb. We've got other pittosporums, little lollipop-shaped ones, which are greener. And these just provide that kind of structure to the border. They are quite a lot of maintenance though, right, Alistair? You've got to look after them.
They are. All the evergreens we will trim usually minimum 2 times a year. These taller pittosporums we kind of form into shapes, kind of up on clear stems. These smaller ones cut into balls. But also giving extra structure through the year, apart from the shrubs and the wall plants at the back, are things like the ornamental grasses, which through the year have these beautiful flower heads, but will stand all the way through the winter. And I've left these ones here just to show you that this is the time of year when they need to be cut right down to the ground. The first signs of life should be just about coming at the very base of the plants. So as soon as you see that happening, cut them down, and that will kind of reinvigorate them, maybe give them a little feed, and then they'll be ready for fresh new foliage to come through for the rest of the year, as will the rest of the border.
Okay, so this is the last thing we'd like to show you. We're in the Droder Garden, the Schulman Auditorium is behind me. This is the kind of last piece of garden. It's the quietest, most tucked away piece of garden. The students come here a lot. And we've done, again, some recent innovations. So we've got another magnificent tree, the holm oak. It's cast this very dense shade, it's evergreen. So it's obviously got its leaves on all year round, and obviously taking a lot of water as well, just like the beech was. And we just used to have grass here. Everything you see here in front of me was just grass. But of course, the grass was growing very, very poorly. Grass doesn't like shade. Grass doesn't like being too dry. And actually prompted by an old member who came to visit Queen's and told me, what's going on in this garden? It doesn't look very good. We thought, she's absolutely right, Alistair? And we thought we've got to do something. And you did all this, right? You carved out this new bed. Tell us about what you planted here and how it's doing.
Even better than I hoped, actually, because it is a very difficult spot. So it was again very much about choosing the right plants to go here. It's very dry and it doesn't get a lot of rain. Heavy rainfall comes through the tree, but pretty much most of the time it has to fend for itself. But with the right planting, it's looking great.
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, this is a big spread of Euphorbia robbii with their lime green bracts and looking wonderful. And then we've got lots of other evergreens that we're using for structure, from the Rubus tricolor as the ground cover to these 3 Nandinas with the beautiful red berries, which kind of forming a structure and a bit more sunshine. And then it's interplanted with a lot of other herbaceous stuff. So during the summer, we've still got a lot of interest, a lot of flowers. We've got a big bank of Japanese forest grass here. We've got Japanese anemones. We've got different goat's beards and gillenias, and then a frontage of persicaria. So again, really good for pollinators, but something to see all year round.
Yeah, I think it's been a tremendous success, this actually, because it certainly felt like a bit of a risk. You know, could we really get things to grow under this tree? And it just goes to show, you know, that you can. And as we said at the beginning when we started the programme, there's something for everywhere. It's just about making those right choices and potentially being prepared to fail, and maybe not spending too much money on things. You know, don't necessarily buy a mature specimen, which can be very expensive. Often better to buy something smaller and let it grow its way in.
Particularly in kind of more intolerant environments, I think. Put them in small, like you say, let the plant adapt to its growing conditions, and it's generally going to be more adaptable than trying to put a big specimen in which is going to be fighting against whatever conditions it was originally being grown in.
Yeah, yeah. And very quickly, actually, this has filled in. I mean,
yeah,
I've been amazed. And something like this, I mean, I know something like this euphorbia, which quite a lot of people might be a bit frightened of because they see it as being very invasive. But the good side of that is the way it grows through things, and it gives you that naturalistic look very quickly, actually.
So it does. And then to curb that kind of spreading tendencies, you can just dig around each plant each season. That will restrict any of the movement of those plants, or you can just dig up some of these runners and pass them on to friends you like or don't like, depending.
Yeah, I was to say, pass them on to your enemies. That's our final piece of advice to all you viewers. So thanks so much for joining us, Alistair and myself, in the garden. We hope you've enjoyed seeing a bit of what's going on here and all the changes that have been taking place, and hopefully picked up a few tips on how to do a little bit better in your own garden with a bit of luck.